And here is the Writer's Almanac for Sunday, the 22nd of March, 2020. It's the birthday of Stephen Sondheim, New York City, 1930. His musicals include A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, A Little Night Music, Sweeney Todd, Into the Woods. Stephen Sondheim, who said, "I prefer neurotic people. I like to hear rumblings beneath the surface." It's the birthday of Billy Collins, New York City, 1941. An only child, wrote his first poem at the age of 7 while he was riding with his parents and looked out the window and saw a sailboat on the East River. He was an English professor and poet, wrote a couple of books before his breakthrough in 1988, The Apple That Astonished Paris. By 1999, the New York Times called him the most popular poet in America. 3 of his 4 books were in the top 16 bestsellers on Amazon.com, competing with Walt Whitman, Robert Frost, Jewell, and Jim Morrison. Billy Collins, who said, "I don't think people read poetry because they're interested in the poet. I think they read poetry because they're interested in themselves." It's the birthday of Edith Grossman, born in Philadelphia, 1936. Her parents were Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe, but for some reason she became obsessed with Spanish. She said, "My high school Spanish teacher just reached me. I said, whatever this woman is doing, I want to do." She went to Spain to study medieval Spanish poetry on a Fulbright grant, became interested in the poetry of Pablo Neruda and Cesar Vallejo, became a professor of Spanish literature in New York. She had translated a few novels when, in the mid-'80s, she set out to translate Gabriel Garcia Marquez's Love in the Time of Cholera. She knew that one of his favorite authors was William Faulkner, so she decided to use Faulkner's style as a guide for her translation. And when the book came out, it was such a success that she was able to quit teaching and translate full-time. She's since translated all of the books that Marquez published since 1990. HarperCollins asked her if she would consider translating Don Quixote, which a great many writers consider the greatest work of fiction in history. She worked on it for 2 years straight. It came out in 2003, hailed as the best English translation in decades. Edith Grossman translated the first sentence, "Somewhere in La Mancha, in a place whose name I do not care to remember, a gentleman lived not long ago, one of those who has a lance, an ancient shield on a shelf, and keeps a skinny nag and a greyhound for racing." Edith Grossman, still translating from Spanish, every morning goes for a walk, works on a crossword puzzle, and then starts her work. Here's a poem by Billy Collins entitled Dharma. The way the dog trots out the front door every morning without a hat or an umbrella, without any money or the keys to her doghouse, never fails to fill the saucer of my heart with milky admiration. Who provides a finer example of a life without encumbrance, Thoreau in his curtainless hut with a single plate, a single spoon, Gandhi with his staff and his holy diapers. Off she goes into the material world with nothing but her brown coat and her modest blue collar, following only her wet nose, the twin portals of her steady breathing, followed only by the plume of her tail. If only she did not shove the cat aside every morning and eat all his food, what a model of self-containment she would be. What a paragon of earthly detachment. If only she were not so eager for a rub behind the ears, so acrobatic in her welcomes. If only I were not her God. Dharma, a poem by Billy Collins from Sailing Alone Around the Room, published by Random House and used by permission here on the Writer's Almanac.